Hi, my name is Deanne. 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to the south of France with my family and had the most incredible encounter with one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And her name is Alice. Over the years, we kept in touch via FaceTime, and every single time she would share these incredible stories about her life, a connection with the spirit world, and she is hilarious. One day I said to her, Alice, you got to write this shit down. And she said I would, but I am severely dyslexic. And I said, well, I'm not. So for the past 8 years, we have been writing down her stories. And when publishing became really, really tricky, wanting to honor her as best as I could, I decided that maybe a podcast would be the best way to share her stories because she does feel that part of her journey here, her time on earth, is to share her experiences. So I will honor her in trying to do as best as I can to do that.
In today's podcast, we will meet Trevor, Alice's late husband. Alice will reflect on the spiritual experiences that helped shape her understanding of the afterlife through messages that she received from Trevor after his death, providing comfort and guidance. Good morning, girlfriend.
Morning, evening, afternoon,
Oh, yes, it is for you. It is
early
for you.
evening
Yes.
for me. Yes.
Today, I thought we would talk about somebody who's been in your life for a very long time, as your husband, Trevor. You met him when you were quite young. You were together your whole married life, and then he continued to visit you in from the spirit world. So I want to know a little bit about Trevor.
Yeah, Trev was my best friend. We grew up together from the age of 14 and a half. And he always wanted, I think when we were 18, we went to Wales. They got mountains in Wales and all that. And we were going on holiday. We were. He said we're now in Wales, and I said, "Oh, do we get different programs now? Do they talk different?" And in my silliness, Wales to me was another country somewhere else, and I think he was a bit shocked and realised that I hadn't been anywhere and didn't know anything about most things. I think he just decided for himself then and there that he was going to teach me stuff that I never knew. He had a better education than me. And so from that sort of point on, he'd point out different things to me as we were going along our life's way. And yeah, as I say, we were best friends. But when we spoke on all subjects, we spoke about the world, how we were going to change it and all that, as you do when you're young, you know. And we used to sit in my mum's passage and before he went home, we'd have about half-hour chatting, and then he'd clear off, go home. But yeah, and of course we got talking about religion. I spoke about what I was brought up in. You know, I was brought up in spiritualism. My parents were both healers, both mediums, and it was so natural for me. I went to Church of England school, but wasn't over enamoured by their church and how cold it was, and all the gargoyles and that on the walls. I didn't like them much, but and on a Sunday when we were children, we all had to go to Sunday school, but mostly I went to the spiritualist church, and the Sunday school was called the Lyceum. It was warm, and we sat in a circle, and the young couple that took the teachings or whatever, they were nice, and I liked the teachings, and they had this great big picture on the wall above this rostrum, you know, of Jesus kneeling and praying at a stone, and the light was shining on him. It was a beautiful picture. And I used to look at it, and I used to see things change. I'd see different people appear in the picture. I never told anybody. To me, it was just a natural thing. Like, that was part of me being sort of educated, the idea that the spiritual side of our life was very much alive. There was all kinds of things from a kid that sort of used to give me answers. I'd ask questions and I'd get answers back. And for instance, and I'm going off the line a bit, but I think it's important that I'll tell you this. When I went to school, we'd have to go into the hall in the morning for prayers. This is a Church of England school. And I think I must have been about 5 years old. I wasn't very old. So we'd go in first, and then all the other classrooms would gradually come into the hall. And it took a time, and they'd play this beautiful piece of music. But this music had an effect on me because I would think about the Jewish people and how they suffered during the war, which wasn't far. And I used to think about the little children and how, I don't know how I knew, but I knew that they'd had terrible misgivings before they died. So my thoughts were very much with the Jewish people. I used to wonder how I knew so much about this at such a young age. And later, I remember a couple of times in meditation, I'd find myself into a room that was white, like white tiles, and I felt the ceiling coming down on me, and I'd have to pull myself out of the meditation. And when I thought about it, I think I must have brought back a memory of being in gas chambers. There was this suggestion that when all this was happening, the war was happening, a lot of the little children that lost their lives, like babies in particular, went out, like died, went out of the life, but they came back in very quickly. And I think I possibly could be in one of those children because my grandmother was partly Jewish, so there was Jewish blood in me. Like us all, we're all a mixture of any, because we've all experienced different existences, because we don't come just once, we come many, many times. But then, sort of going back to Trev, that he was saying, well, I don't really believe in all that. Like, I said, well, that's fine. If you don't believe, it doesn't matter. I never thought you've got to believe what I think. It is right what I think. Never ever did I ever do that. I sort of gave out what I thought. And then it was up to whoever was listening to me, made their own minds up. And that went along with everything from that young age to now, really. If I experience something, I like to share it. And then it's up to you if you want to take it on board and make it part of your journey. That's absolutely fine. If it doesn't gel with you, then that's also fine because it is my journey. But I do believe that, well, I've come to believe that my job, partly my job here, is to share what I experience because I've got that lovely, lovely gift, and I see it as a gift, and I feel very privileged.
And Trevor, even though he didn't really understand or believe your experiences, never tried to poo-poo it or take it away from you. He just respected that that was your thing.
Well, yeah. My mum was an amazing lady, so my mum would say little bits, and he'd listen to her, and he said, "I don't really need all that stuff," like, you know. Oh, it's fair enough. That's fair enough. But I remember I'll jump a few years, and I'll go to the time of when I first moved here with the kids. It was a beautiful place. I lived near the sea. We had a small holding, so we had land. We had ponies and ducks and geese and chickens, and all sorts of stories were being made. It was a wonderful time. The only sad thing was Trevor had to work up country to enable us to living here.
Right.
He still had to work away. So my time was spent with the kids and looking after the farmyard, basically. And then in time, I run a bed and breakfast business. I met people from all over the world, which was wonderful. I wanted to know about their lives and everything. As I say, the sad thing was Trevor was working away. And I thought to myself, I didn't know anybody at all. I knew nobody, and I thought I've got to make friends. I need to talk to grown-up people because I think Jodie was about 12 when we first moved. So they were all very young, my kids. I see an advert in the local paper advertising a spiritual group, and I thought, oh, maybe it's time that I can go along and start seeing if it's for me. Just so happened to mention it to Trevor, and he weren't very happy about it. And I think he thought it was something like Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's certainly not for me. I mean, it's for others, that's fine, but it's not for me, and it's not
Right.
what I believe in. So I made a pact with him. I said, look, Trev, I've always been in this all my life. I'd like to go and pursue the group. If it doesn't work out, or if it interferes with the family, then you say, and I won't go no more. So he said, okay. And that never even came into play because it was fine. I didn't change, and
Right.
not in that sense, like with the family or anything, or it didn't interfere with our relationship. But sometimes I think he might have been a little bit jealous that I was giving my energy to something else. But I was always quite a shrewd person, so I never pushed anything. I never started. Well, I'm not that sort of a person anyway, where you start saying, you need to believe in this and this is how it is, and you get a bit fanatical and it's also silly. Well, it gets on your bleeding nerves when they keep on about stuff, doesn't it, people? But hey, it was very natural for me, and I just went along, and the stuff that's really made me sit up and think, I would take it on board and think about it. And as I say, if it didn't work, I would discard it. Anyway, we got to the point where, sadly, Trevor became ill. Trevor packed in working up country and came back. He came home and he bought himself a fishing boat and he went fishing. He made a living out of it, which was good. Not weren't the big living that we had in Hertfordshire, but it didn't matter. We were together and the kids were growing. They were all happy because they had this wonderful life, and I was happy because I was meeting people that were so interesting. And I was learning stuff about life and shamanic, all sorts of things, dowsing. I met some incredible people, and sort of my journey had started. I'd had those different experiences as a child, but it was becoming more grown up stuff. It was just lovely. I just enjoyed it. It was becoming quite an important part of myself. I met some really nice people in the group, and I never looked for any ideas in books. I just put my thoughts out to the spirit world and asked for help. And my mum had a guide I used to be in contact with for quite a while. One of my best teachers, like she was my mum's guide, and she was like an old friend. I got to know her well over the years. Really, it all started when I was pregnant with Jodie. I used to go into my mum's for a cup of tea in the afternoon, and we'd have a meditation, and she'd tell me things, and oh, just amazing medium she was. She'd tell me things that in a few months later it had happened. I mean, even down to when we came to moving, she just knew. We were sitting there one afternoon. She'd been for lunch, and she said to me, "Trevor, love that small holding." And I looked at her, and she said, "I can see you living near the sea." She said, "The earth would be like a reddy colour. She said, "You're not far from the sea. There's fields in between, and there's a stream running, and there's a big drive round the house." She could see fruit trees and animals there, ducks and geese and things. I thought, we didn't have no money then. I thought, Christ, she's gone on one, you know. But sure as eggs are eggs, sort of about 7 or 8 years later, different experiences in between, we had that small holding. And I just couldn't believe it when I walked around the place. I know this place. I know this. I know this. And it was all what my mum had told me.
Right.
It was already there. And going to this group, starting the group, the foundations, without me realising it, were already set because I'd been, obviously, I've been trained for that little job, and it came into play. You know, I run the group. I just really enjoyed it. I felt like Mother Hen. And I began to realise that the people that I was sitting with didn't know as much as me, and yet I thought I was the one who was living in sort of ignorance, and they were also very clever. But I learnt later that most of it came from books, and but mine came naturally. I felt very humbled. I've never ever felt, you know, I know this and I know that, and I'm going to charge you £150 a session and all that old rubbish, you know. That's how it all gradually knitted together. It was like making a beautiful big blanket of colour. And the experiences, though, that were knitting together. And also, I was growing and sharing my path with others. And it's been a good path, an honest path. And I'm just so, I feel so privileged. Those in the spirit world who obviously work with me have shared such a wonderful, wonderful experience.
How was Trevor with you when you started running the group or taking the group?
He was still away up country. Yeah, he was still away up country, and I used to come home and all that. And so I was well established by the time he came home. I think that period of time when we were apart, I think they were working with me, and I had to have that time apart to be able to take on so much. Otherwise, it would have been well into the family life with Trevor at the helm, if you like, which I wanted. It was nothing sinister about it. It was how a man and a woman who love each other come together, and we take your parts, don't you? I was very happy to bring the kids up and see him clean and with his sandwiches and going off to his boat. And I was there sorting out the bloody chickens and the horses and all that sort of stuff. It was a wonderful life. It really was. But then it sort of jumped. I mean, there was lots of things in between that I'll probably tell you about on and off as our time, goes along together. But when Trevor was really ill, I started to, well, I had to pull back a little bit, but things were still happening for me spiritually. So the actual journey of grief and learning about death, because my dad had died, when I was a kid, but to actually be fully into somebody dying that you loved, it was a first timer, and it was parts was beautiful. And that sounds strange, but because I'd had the education of being connected with the spirit world, I knew that when he went, he wasn't going to be gone. He wasn't going to be dead. He was going to be just in another space,
Right.
And I wasn't being fanciful. I knew that he was going to be okay and he was going to be safe where he was going. But like one night, he was in bed and I went to the other room because he'd had this operation. He'd had a lung taken out. So I went to the other room so he'd got more space and he was more comfortable. And the door was open and I'm a very light sleeper. He called me. He said, "Are you awake?" I said, "Yeah." So I got up and went into him, and he pulled the cover back, and for me to get in bed with him, so I did. And he got hold of my hand, and he was kissing my hand, and I said, cut it out. Not really. Behave yourself. And he said, there's a door up there, and I don't know what's behind it. So I said, well, have another look. Anybody around? So he said, no. I said, oh, well, don't worry about it. So he said, and there's this bloke, he keeps looking at me, this man. So I said, all right. I said, did you say anything? No. I said, oh, come on then, we won't talk about that. I said, let's go back to when we were travelling. Let's have a little, let's go to New Zealand. And I started talking about New Zealand, and then he patted me and he said, I'm all right now. So he said, you can go. So I thought, right, okay then. So I jumped out of bed so he could go to sleep and be okay. So I went back to bed. And I don't know if it was the next night or within that space of time, I'd gone to bed one night and I was just laying there and I sort of opened my eyes and looked, and in the doorway, because the door was open, there was this man standing there, and he was big. He was a big, solid man, and he looked. At the time, I thought he's either Mongolian or he's Japanese, and I told him to bugger off. And I thought, oh dear, what have I done? And he did, because he went immediately. He was a spiritual being. And I thought, oh, what have I done? And I felt ever so guilty about it. But I think just a couple of nights later, it was a short period of time, he appeared again to me. And I looked and I thought, and he started talking to me immediately in case I told him to clear off. I think his words, I cannot tell you what he said, but his words that he spoke were absolutely beautiful. At the time, I think he was talking to my soul. And he was preparing me. Absolutely beautiful. And I was so grateful for him to have come back after I told him to clear off. and anyway, and Trevor passed on. And of course, it was, hard. It was hard. And I knew I couldn't believe was like I was going through the motions of knowing that time was short, and was in the hospital, and others were with us, and then the time that I wanted with him to talk to him wasn't there. Other people had come in, and there was a couple of things that were unsavoury, like with the nursing staff and the silliness of people who don't really understand stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's not important. But when the time was there, when he was going, I knew immediately. And I moved the nurse out the way. I said, I moved her. And I said, come on, Trev, it's time. It's time for you to go. And he got a little bit agitated. And I said, come on, mate, it's time. And Greg encouraged him, my boy. He was with me. The others were doing different things. They'd been with him all night and they'd gone about their business. And then he went. It was strange. It was as if I was there, and yet I wasn't there. It was quite peculiar, really. But anyway, I went home and just went through the motions as you do, and all that sort of stuff. And then day became night and night became day, and I got on with things. And then I heard that the group that I belonged to, there was a guy come in to give a talk on healing. And I thought, well, it'd be good. I need to get out. I think Trevor had gone less than a month. And Janie said, oh, I'll come with you, Mum. So he goes up to this meeting, and it was very interesting. It was a guy who was giving a talk on this. I can't remember the name of the subject, but it's, you can learn to be able to read people through their eyes. I think you can look into their eyes and you can tell of the illnesses that they've had in life. Oh, I can't remember what it was about really, because although it was very interesting, I was still really much in grief. I just needed to be out. Anyway, we left there and we went home. Janie dropped me off and off she went. And I had a drink before I went to bed. And I went to bed, and my pattern of sleeping is I lay to my right, and then I go over to the left, then I go back to the right, and I go. It's like rocking yourself to sleep, but I'd always done it. And I was laying there to my right, just thinking about different things about the group that I'd just been to, and it was interesting and that. And then all of a sudden, I felt the bed go down behind me, as if Trevor had come to bed. And I thought, oh, it didn't frighten me because, partly I was in grief, and also I was just floating with everything. And of course, I'd had the knowledge that
Right.
was in the background. So I turned over and I knew it was Trevor laying there. I couldn't see him, but the night was very dark and I was in a room that was very dark. He was just laying next to me, and I said, "Hello, mate. What are you doing here?" He said, "This lady bought me." I said, "What lady's that?" So he said, "Well, she looks like old Bet Davis," he said. And I could see her in my mind, having a cigarette and long, colourful nails, And I felt he was in like a little group. And I said to him, "What was your transition like?" He said it was absolutely wonderful.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, I'm so pleased. So he said, "Can you give Janie a message for me?" So I said, "Yeah, of course I can." So he said, "Can you can you tell her thank you?" And I said, I've got to go and get a drink." I said, my throat was really sore. So I got up and I went into the kitchen, had a drink, came back, and he said, "Will you tell her, thank her for her thoughts and thank her for all she did for me and give her these?" And these daffodils appeared, very long stemmed daffodils, beautiful yellow they were. And I said, "Okay." So he said, I think that was all he said. And then I felt that he was going. I felt the energy going, and I didn't feel any more need to speak. And gradually he faded and went, and I went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning, I thought, my goodness, what happened last night? It went through my mind. I thought, I've got to get up and I've got to tell Janie this. I knew she'd be up early because she ran a big guest house. So I got up and I phoned her and I said what I've just told you. She said, "Mum, I can't believe that." She said, "Because last night when I left you, it was a beautiful night. So I went home and got in the hot tub." She said, "All the stars were out." She said, "And I was looking." She said, "And I looked into several places in the sky and said, 'Dad, if you're out there, can you let me know if you're all right?'" And he'd said to me, "Thank you, thank her for her thought." And she said, "The daffodils, I'd had these disabled people around and they planted over 200 daffodil bulbs a couple of days before. And I didn't know that. I didn't know. So it was just unbelievable. I just couldn't believe what I'd experienced, for him to come back, be able to come back like that. And then I started having this experience. I'd be laying in bed and I'd feel like an energy, and I could see like an energy at the end of the bed. And I'd be looking at it, and then all of a sudden it started creeping up my body. And as it came up my body, I wasn't able to move. And until the point it sort of take the whole of my body over. I could see and I could hear, but I couldn't move.
Mm.
And and then it went, and then it came again another night, a couple of nights, or I don't know, it was a couple of nights or a couple of weeks later, it's come again. And the second time, it had gone up my body, and it was just going up and down my body like a spinning top, going up and going down, going up. And I was being held down, and it got a little bit uncomfortable. So I said, "Can you leave, please, because I'm getting uncomfortable." And one last spin went up my back, and it was gone. And and I thought, "Oh dear, it's a shame I had to, tell it to go, because it was interesting. I wasn't fearful of it at all, not at all." And then it went for a few months, and then I was round Janie's, and she'd gone away on a short break, and I looked after a place for her. And I was in a room that had a small conservatory, so it was quite light. And I'd gone to bed and I was laying there and I'm looking towards the area that was light and I could see this energy. Oh God, here we go again. And it started to come up my body and I thought, come on, what's the matter with you? You know, go with it. So I did. I went with it, and it was once again, it was going up and down my body, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was as if somebody was trying to plug in, but couldn't plug in quite. And then it sort of left my body, and yeah, it left my body. I have to think about this because this was a long time ago, and yeah, it left. No, it left my body before I got out of bed, and then I thought I've got to get up because the lower part of my body, there was this tremendous burning sensation, and it felt as big as a tennis ball. So I got up and I'm fanning myself down. Then I got back into bed, and then Trevor came. And I could see him. He came to me and he gave me a big cuddle and then he went. It was definitely, oh, well, I knew it was him who was trying to connect with me. And I couldn't make out. I asked several people what this experience would be with the heat at the lower part of my body. And, well, right in the base of my spine it was. And I'd put it out there. Nobody could tell me what I was experiencing. So, and I was due to go over to Jodie's, and I got a library of different books here. So I dug this book out. I thought I'll be something to read, maybe. Well, took it with me, and it was so cold one morning. I thought I'm going to lay in bed for a while because it's so cold. So I got the book, and I'm half in the covers like this, you know, reading. And it was a story about a young girl who was an American, and I think she'd been shot, but survived the shooting. And she became quite spiritual after it because she had near-death experience. Anyway, she was on an internal flight in America and she was going to see her friend. And when she arrived at the airport, she had no energy. She had a job to get out of her seat and get off the plane. She met her friend who was waiting for her. He explained that she'd got this problem. So she immediately took her to see a friend of hers who was a Buddhist healer. And he took one look at this girl and he said, she's losing her life force. And he said, if you put your hand over the top of her head, you'll feel her energy leaving her. And she said it was tremendous heat. I don't know how he rectified it. I don't know. I didn't remember reading. I don't even know if it was in the book. But I'd got my answer to my question that I was losing. They would do whoever it was. Well, it was Trevor. I can't say whoever it was. It was Trevor. I'm trying to tap into my life force, and that's why the energy had come away from that area. You know, at the base of the spine. That is where we store our life's energy from. And you very often hear people say when somebody had died, their hair all shines. Well, you know, if it comes up, it travels up the spine and it goes through the head. And if it's your life force, it would shine. It would be bright.
Well, why would Trevor want to take that?
So he could connect with me.
So not take it away, but tap into it.
No, tap into it. Yeah, he was trying to tap into it because he was going up and down my spine, but couldn't quite get the connection. Isn't that amazing?
Oh,
Absolutely. Oh, it was really something else, and we had lots of experiences together. I used to, of a night time when I went to bed, I used to look forward to going to bed because I would connect him with him most nights. I'd say me prayers and then I'd start having a little chat with Trev, tell him what sort of day I'd have, and I'd get reactions. And then one day I was talking to him, and I said, "You never give me a ring." I said, "Do you know? I think I might have liked to have had a ring. I mean, I had a wedding ring, but an engagement ring." And I said, yeah, left it. And then the next night, the very next night, I had a blue stone appear. I shut my eyes and immediately I could see this most beautiful blue stone. It was just hovering there. And then it went to my wedding finger. And then for days after that, if I brought it to mind, I could feel that ring on my finger. It was amazing. And I said to him at the same time, I said to him, did you really love me? And I said, did you? I loved him. I absolutely adored him. I said, did you love me as much as I loved you? And the next morning, after I was asking that question, I went to bed, sleep, nothing like. In the morning, I opened my eyes and I could hear Leona Lewis singing. And she was singing this song, and the words in it were, even though I cannot hear you cannot hear my voice, I am right beside you. And I couldn't believe it. In fact, that did freak me out. It freaked me out because it was immediately I opened my eyes, I could hear her singing it. And I know they're not the words that start the song off, but that's where it came in. Even though you cannot hear my voice, I am right beside you, dear. And I stopped talking to him after that.
You don't often say that freaked me out. You don't often say that with your spirit stories.
No. It was because it was a direct question from me to him. And I thought, Jesus. And I thought, this is getting too, I don't know, it was getting too close. I think what was I doing? I think I was becoming too in the spiritual realms. If that makes sense. I've got time that I need to spend here. This is what I was thinking at the time. And I think I was just spending too much time in that time, that zone. Like, I wasn't past, I just needed to be here because I had the family to look after and all that time. I had to move on. Because I was going to be here for as long as there'll be a time for us again.
And he's visited since. It's just not been as intense, right?
Sounds probably he didn't come for a while, and of course I met Vicky, didn't I? I met an old friend who was who's in love
an
with
old
me when I was a
friend, all
kid.
right.
Yeah, old Vic.
So
Yeah, he's
just for
lovely.
the listeners, Alice, what year did Trevor pass away?
I don't know. It's 20 years ago now. 21 years ago now. I got it all written down, but I don't. I'm terrible. I don't remember dates very much. Each day is a new day, and what's past is behind me, and so I don't. And it's awful.
Okay, so Trevor's been passed for over 20 years, and Vicky, just for the listeners, has just popped into your life. What is it now? 2 years?
Yeah, we're we talk on the phone. We don't meet. We've met once, but I knew him when I was sweet 16. We went to the same club together, and I didn't know, but apparently he was in love with me and used to watch me dance and watch my little skinny legs and and I didn't know that he was a singer, and yet he'd been in my life on and off since that time. We were 16. We knew the same music, we knew the same people, and he was always frightened to ask me out, you know. And he did walk me home once when Trevor had packed me up.
He did what?
He was always packing me up, Trevor.
What does that mean, packing you up? I don't understand that expression.
Well, finish the relationship.
Oh, like taking a break.
Yeah. As soon as somebody else got interested, he'd be back, you know. But we was only 14 and a half to start with, so he never really had a good jolly time. And nor did I, because we met each other too young, really. But Vicky, poor Vicky, he said, when I met him on Facebook, he put a thing out, a request out to try and find me. And his wife had died 4 years ago. So a friend said, I said, I know him. So she helped me to, showed me how to connect like. And so I sent him a message and said, this is a voice from the past. This is little Alice. Oh, and he was delighted that I'd been in touch. He said, Alice, I've loved you for 67 years. Oh, I said, what about now? But he's lovely. We talk about music. He had the most beautiful voice. That's what he was. He was a singer. And sometimes even now he sings to me. But he's a lovely person. He's a sweet guy.
I wonder if Trevor's still jealous now.
I doubt it. Well, nothing's happened anyway. We're just great friends, you know. We chat and we laugh together, and he was in love with his wife and all that. I think we just a comfort for one another.
Yeah.
So I'm sure when it's time to go home, I should be going up that hill looking for Trevor, and he'll be going down that valley looking for Carol. I'm sure, you know. So it's just how it is, but the spiritual side has been such a comfort. To have had the beliefs that I have seen me in better times. Because grief is a very harsh lesson that we all have to have. But if you've got that belief and you have that realization that this is only just a lesson, it's not our true home, you know. And we learn, we grow, we take that knowledge back with us, and then we come again and again and again, God and again. But yeah, there's people that I look forward to seeing once again. What the lovely thing about it is, there is no fear. I don't fear passing to that new time. I've seen such wonderful things. I remember one night in dream state, because I think you have different qualities of dreams. Dreams that are just ordinary, mundane dreams. Then you have dreams that are actually an experience and you're actually there and you can bring part of that knowledge back. You can't bring it all back, but you can bring part of it back. And one place I went to in dream state, and I was taken to a place where I could see this city, but I couldn't go there. It was too far, but I could see it, and it was all gold. It was just amazing. I thought, it's gold, and it was all shining, and I thought, that's the spirit world. That's the place that I will go to. It felt very ancient, but it was gold. I think I've never told you that before, have I?
I don't remember that story, no. I mean, we have been chatting for a number of years, but I don't remember that story. But for today, this is we can wrap it up for today because you've shared lots about Trevor and your stories just weave together in and out. And I love the picture you gave us of these experiences, these stories. You're knitting this beautiful blanket with multiple colors. It's a beautiful analogy. I like that.
Oh, thank you very much, my friend. Yeah, and I'm only an ordinary person. I'm dyslexic. So, you know, when I write stories, when I was travelled all over the world, when I was travelling with Trevor, I used to say to him, I'm going to write something, he'd go, oh, Christ. I say, Trev, how'd you spell this? Trev, how'd you spell that? And he'd say, break it down. And I used to write to a friend of mine, Bobby, who's just passed over. And she used to take my letters to work with her because she worked in a doctor's surgery. And at lunchtime, when they're all having lunch, she'd read my letter to them, and they'd all laugh and gave them great joy in the spellings that she would tell out to them that were rubbish. So at least I give somebody pleasure out of my dyslexia. Oh dear. But you know, the belief that I have is for everybody. It's not just for people who are educated, it's for everybody. Some books I've looked at and I thought, it's like looking at French to me, you know.
Yeah.
So one time I felt as though I wouldn't be in with this particular group of very well read people. And a couple of them had been to university and they were using big words, and I thought, oh God, I'm never going to be able to be, as on the ball as these people. And I was corrected spiritually about that. That is for everybody.
I'm
And
glad that you listened to the correction because you are a beautiful soul. You have a lot to offer. And yeah, I've seen your writing. I know how difficult life can be with somebody with it's a disability in the way that we function in this world.
yeah.
And you've found ways around it, and I am very impressed by that. I am in
Well,
awe
thank
of
you.
you.
I think it's because I probably in my last life come from Boogie Boogie land, and of course spelling wasn't. I was like up the Amazon somewhere in a bog. Yeah, I was up the Amazon, and that's why dyslexic people. That's where they come from, Boogie Boogie land.
Alice. Okay, we're going to wrap it up for today. Thank you again, beautiful soul, beautiful stories, and thank you for sharing.
That's quite all right. Good night and God bless.
Love you loads.
I love you too. Yeah. Thank you.